I'll call the meeting to order. This is the City of Essex Junction Development Review Board meeting of Thursday, April 17th, 2025. Item 1, additions or amendments to the agenda.
None from me.
Anyone else? No? Okay, item 2, public to be heard. This is a chance for anybody in the audience to speak about a subject that is not on the agenda tonight. Anyone? How many people online do we have?
None online.
None online, okay. Item 3, minutes for approval, March 20th, 2025. And I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
I second that.
All right, good. Any changes, adjustments, modifications to the minutes as written? Anyone? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved as written. Thank you. All right, so we're up to the good stuff. Public hearing. Number 1, final plat review for a 3-lot subdivision for 1 residential lot and 2 lots for future development. Road connection of Taft Street to Meadow Terrace in the R1 district by Center for Technology Essex owners. And I see we have several people here, so just remember to introduce yourself, and then I think Michael has some hybrid meeting announcements that are going to slow us down a little.
Yep. Meeting of the Essex Junction Development Review Board has come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely and some are meeting physically at 6 Lincoln Street in the Culvert Room at Brownell Library, where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. One member of this public body or other staff is present at 6 Lincoln Street to ensure that the public can participate if desired. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or of the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert me by using the chat feature on Zoom or by emailing me, mgiguere@essexjunction.org. And in the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue this meeting, if necessary, to Thursday, May 15th at 6:30 p.m. at 6 Lincoln Street in the Culvert Room at Brownell Library. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. We have all board members here physically in person, so no need for roll call attendance. I'll start by swearing in all members that are presenting on behalf of an application today. So anyone here present on behalf of a public hearing item, raise your right hand and take the following oath. I hereby swear that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God, or under the pains and penalties of perjury. Thank you.
All right. Can we get a quick overview of the updates since the last version? There was a lot of paperwork for this. I think most of it was technical in nature.
I think that's correct. My name is Scott Holmstead. I was the Preston Lansing Consulting Engineers with the Civil Engineer Project. I'm here with Chris Welch, representative for Center for Technology Essex. I think there was a lot of work that went on between the sketch plan and now, but I think the overriding idea and intent of the project is really the same. And what we've done is add a lot more detail. Basically fully designed the project in terms of utility design, grading design, and addressing a lot of technical comments from staff and the city engineer, which I believe we're pretty much I think we got them all, which is a really great place to be. I've been in many of these meetings where there's sort of a lot of outstanding issues, and we have to talk about them for a long time and some of them are okay, and some of them aren't. And I really think we're in good shape here tonight, in that we got all the comments in advance, a little back and forth on them with staff and with the, the city engineer, but I think we're really in a good spot. I would bring up a couple specific items that, one of the items that came up at the sketch plan that we did talk about a little bit was how the driveway to the existing CTE buildings would align with this new road, and that has been resolved. We did make it more of a perpendicular intersection. I think that's the right plan to look at right there, where the drive right now kind of comes up straight and goes into Meadow Terrace. Now it'll kind of make a little jog and turn and intersect our new road at a perpendicular angle. Another little thing that I would point out, just because I think it's a nice benefit that was brought up as a possibility and the applicant agreed to do, was in our sketch plan, the sidewalk along this new road, which we're now calling Meadow Terrace Extension, right, is formally just sort of ended at our property line and at the limits of our new pavement. And now we're going to actually extend that up and add a handicap access ramp so that it aligns with the sidewalk on Upland Road. So there won't be any gap. There won't be this odd 50-foot section where a pedestrian would have to come off the sidewalk, walk down the road to the next section of sidewalk. So we thought that was, a good idea, a nice improvement, for the project and the community as a whole. Overall, I might have jumped into some details right away just to get people back up to speed. This project is an extension of the CTE home building program that has been gone years ago. Just as a refresher, we permitted 5 lots out here, and it takes them 2 years to build a house. 10 years have gone by. They clearly want to continue this program. It's been super successful and popular. And so our goal here is to get, for now, just 1 new lot permitted and get them up to speed and ready to go in the fall. And then, over the course of the next year or two, we'll probably be back in front of you and do some more lots within the same area, not expanding it anymore, so that the program will be sort of solvent and ready to go for the next, longer period of time. The extent of the project is triggered by this new lot triggers the need to have the road connected. Basically, the number of units on the road was no longer acceptable to just have a cul-de-sac. And I know we discussed that a little bit, sketch plan. There were some public comments about it that, maybe they didn't want this to be connected through between Taft Street and Meadow Terrace. But in accordance with the town regulations, we simply have to. We can't add more houses without doing it. So that was a key point I wanted to bring up. Other than that, my work was nuts and bolts. It was getting the sewer to work, getting the stormwater design to work, adding erosion control. There was quite a bit of back and forth on the lighting plan. I did actually just send the final version of that off to Michael today. But we think it now meets all pertinent regulations. And yes, I think unless people want to hear more from me about specific topics, I'd go ahead and open up the questions.
Board members, anyone have questions?
I know that one, because you're connecting it with Taft, and you're doing the sidewalk piece.
Yeah.
I think there was also an issue with some of the neighbors with the any sort of traffic calming.
Right. And so
applications.
what we did is we just added signage. There are
Okay.
stop signs here there's a stop sign from the driveway coming from the CTE building
Okay.
to this road. So those people won't be able to just sort of tear out of work
Okay.
and go. And then there's an additional stop sign for our road prior to Upland Terrace.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I think the only times I've been through there, I'm on a bicycle, so
Right.
it hasn't bothered me that much. So you've got a lot of work here, and I'm only seeing one possible building footprint. Is that the first one out of the next 5, or
So that is the only building lot that will be approved at this time. We'll have to come back to do more, and that is because we just haven't, the program has thought about possibly converting to maybe doing some duplexes, and essentially we needed more time to do that, and there was a real time constraint here in order to get them to be able to be in the ground in the fall.
Yeah.
And so we made a decision collectively to be like, you know what, we'll go in, we'll get one lot we know we need to do, keep the program going, and then we'll essentially have 18 months to come up, with our long term.
the next one? So you've got a lot of territory that looks like it's ripe for subdividing,
Yes.
and it'll be all utilitied and
Right.
streets are built
And we
out.
and we
lighting's
did and we
there.
did try to anticipate it with
Yeah.
with like utility stubs, for instance. Like so, our plan shows extra water and sewer stubs so that when we do come back, this road's all built, we're not going to have to tear up the road to make utility connections for these new lots. So that has been anticipated and included. We just don't know where the lot.
Can I keep going, or you got more? Oh, I don't want to interrupt you. So the 16 northern red oaks that are essentially the street trees.
Correct.
Are there any issues with those? I mean, we have this tree committee that likes to get involved. Is this a proper tree for this area? Not a maple? Not anybody out tired of maples? And
So our goal with the landscape plan was to continue what was out
what
there.
was there?
Yeah. And so I think, if the arborist or someone wants to make, a swap out at some point, I think that's something we would be amenable to, but it hasn't been raised to this point.
I'll raise. I sent these plans off to Nick Meyer and the Tree Advisory Committee. They did not get back to me, but have not raised concerns about this subdivision in the past in terms of landscaping.
I don't want to admit that I was here for the last one, but I think I was. The only other question
I
had
wasn't
a
at the
couple-
meeting, but I worked on it.
I have a couple other questions. I was trying to work my way through the lot numbering,
Yes.
and it's not entirely clear. You got some 7s and 4s and 4As and things like that.
Yeah, and so that's a relic from prior to the last subdivision that I've referenced a couple times. There was a previous subdivision before that when they first started doing this, and so I think at the time there was, I might be getting this off a little bit, but there was a hesitancy because it was a new subdivision. People wanted to restart the numbering process. So we wanted lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we didn't want to confuse that with the existing lots 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And so we started
House
this
numbers
A
or 911
suffix.
things. Those are that's not related to the lot. number.
Correct.
Okay.
And we usually just work those out with staff after the
And
fact.
the one that throws me off because I've had to argue for or against I forget what the proper name is, but odd lot sizes or odd shapes.
Yes.
So for me, lot 7A is the weirdest one I've seen ever. In that it looks like it has a chunk over on the south side to the left, and then there's a little ribbon that comes across behind lot 6A, and then it starts to look like Oklahoma or something, and it has a panhandle and another piece that's untitled, so I'm guessing it's still 7A. I don't know what happens on 7A, but I'm pretty sure that everything on the right hand side is going to end up off of the Taft Street extension when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering what's the rationale by appearing to leave all that as one contiguous lot.
I believe I think yes. You've actually hit the nail on the head maybe unintentionally, is that we wanted the entire open space area to be contiguous. And so if we extended lot 6A to the back of the property, that would then basically create another lot because it would cut that in half. So that was the reasoning behind that, is we wanted one lot that encompassed all the open space and remaining lands on that side of the road.
And at some point, if that changes and you end up subdividing it again, you'll make some sense out of what happens there. Okay. Anyone else have I mean, I don't know that there's an issue with that at all. I'm just seemed odd.
I think I've had, people can disagree on this. I've had less issues with the irregularly shaped lots when there's no buildings proposed on them. What people tend to get hung up on, in my experience, is if you are really sort of gerrymandering a lot to get a building in, and then that could be an issue. And I think our actual building lots are fairly regular.
And lastly, on the watershed plan, there's a note pointing to the possible building footprint that's called disconnected roof.
Yep.
And I need to know what that is. I don't know.
Yep, I can tell you. So the idea is, that's very related to stormwater management. And so the idea is that if you built a house here, it might likely have pitched roof, part of it coming forward and part of it going back. And the roof draining forward would drain out towards the road, get into the stormwater management system, go to the gravel wetland. So it would be difficult to do that with the back portion of the roof without a lot of gutters and extra piping or swaling across the back of the lot. But what the stormwater rules allow you to do is, if you have a lot of just sort of undisturbed vegetated land, you can, quote, disconnect your roof. And that means basically the runoff from that portion of a roof is going to sheet flow over vegetation and be treated that way, rather than having to be directed to a central stormwater treatment practice.
Thank you. I knew there was a
How was
reason.
that?
It's a wetland. It's a stormwater description that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I could nerd out on it as long as you'd like.
Well, now see, I get to do that the next time. All right. I don't have any other questions. Do anyone else have? I thought it was very well resolved from the comments and from the other questions we had before. So that's great, and it's a program that's just tremendous for CTE, and we glad to see it continue. Anyone else? Did we have we had a motion in there somewhere?
Yep, I'll note that we have
report.
2 motions. This came up during conceptual. So one's for the subdivision and one's for a boundary line adjustment. You'll note, I'll zoom in on the plans here, that technically this kind of island was cut off from the high school's parcel, technically not on CTE's lands. So part of the motion you have in there is to do a boundary line adjustment to donate that portion of land to CTE, so you don't have this strange partitioned island that is the high school's property cut off by the new Meadow Terrace Road.
All right. Anybody ready to make a motion?
Yeah, and they have to be 2 separate ones, right?
That would be best, yeah.
Sure.
Then, I'll move that the DRB approve the boundary line adjustment for the proposed 3-lot subdivision and road connection of Taft Street to Meadow Terrace, 11 Meadow Terrace in the R1 district with conditions.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Any second motion?
I move that the TRB approve the final plat for the proposed 3-lot subdivision and road connection of Taft Street to Meadow Terrace at 11 Meadow Terrace in the R1 district with conditions.
And then I don't know that we have to read all the proposed conditions into the record, but they're printed, so you can just maybe say with the proposed condition.
With the proposed conditions listed in
they're all pretty much the normal boilerplate there anyway, so. Okay, any, do I have a second?
I second.
Any more discussion? Still nobody online? There's one person online. Is that a real person online? Or is
Yeah, it
some-
looks like someone's using the phone function to call into the Zoom meeting.
I guess the hearing's over because we're voting. All in favor of the motion, as read with the proposed conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you both.
All right. Public hearing number 2, final site plan review to add 3 dwelling units to an existing 3-story mixed-use building with 2 dwelling units and a commercial space at 34 Park Street in the Village Center District by Park Street Ventures LLC owner. And representatives are here. Please introduce yourselves and did we swear them in last time? We didn't, right? We just did the other guys?
Were you present for the
Yeah,
swearing?
okay,
Excellent.
we're good.
So I'm Chris McEwing, Park Street Ventures.
I'm Ryan Augustine, the engineer. Consulting.
We have the plans, but maybe you can walk people through a little bit of what you resolved since the last time you were here.
Yes, so in our conceptual review, it was pretty straightforward that, as we all stated, this is a current functioning building. Not everything conforms to current land development code, but having it all written down, a lighting plan showing parking and handicap parking and showing the current location of dumpsters was all something that was asked for. So a lot of it had to do with putting things on paper that didn't exist before. We also have added in, I think, a bike rack and a bench next to it. I'm actually not sure if that's on the plan or not, but we were talking about some level of pro rata share of something like landscaping like that, but otherwise putting in what currently exists, because the building currently functions with its commercial and residential capacity.
Yeah. It's all coming back at me. So yeah, it was more of a documentation exercise because it was hard to tell, that we couldn't evaluate
Yeah.
properly what we were looking at because the existing conditions were, they just hadn't been documented. So I thank you for that. I had some notes myself. I don't know if anybody else. I mean, the building itself there's no change to the footprint.
Yep, there's no exterior changes that we have planned.
No exterior changes. So we have these lovely renderings which essentially don't change anything. You're just telling us what's there.
Correct, yeah. The only change, I think, is 2 exterior windows.
Yeah. All right. And
So the entrance for the apartments is the one on Park Street. That's the same entrance for the businesses.
Correct,
right?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And there's I've bike there like every day, so there's no sort of covering.
There is
Sort of-
not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's not like a vestibule or
Yeah,
anything.
okay.
No.
I didn't see on the drawing where the bike infrastructure is going to go.
Oh, okay. So if you're looking at the entrance to the apartments, just to the south of that, we had one bike hoop, or one set of bike hoops, which I think serves as 4 bikes.
this may be more of a question for Michael. I was trying to work my way through the concept of the footprint lot and how it applies to this building. As in, what my mind is saying is, we're doing something to the building. The building is normally a footprint lot would be in maybe a PUD or something where there's one ownership of the lot entirely, and then all the things for sale on top of it own the footprint underneath them, but not the rest of the land alone, they own it commonly.
Yep.
So in a way, that's what I'm hearing you say, which I didn't want that to mean, hey, we're only working on the building, you have to go talk to somebody else, right?
Sure, sure, yeah.
Or are there different ownerships involved with the building and the lot as a whole, or is it sort of one?
Yes, I don't, Park Street Ventures doesn't own any of that land. That's correct. It is in common sort of thing. And there are, you may or may not know, but there is a master plan for other lots behind the building and
Yeah.
et cetera.
Okay,
But-
so I wasn't, again, this is more technical, but is there co-applicant, or if we're asking for things to happen outside the footprint, are we asking the wrong party to make them happen?
So, yeah, I think a good nickname for a situation like this that I heard in discussion with other planners is a commercial condominium. If we had a condominium owner coming in to add something, they would get sign off on their condo association, the surrounding property owner. In similar situation here is we're just asking the applicant, which again owns the footprint of the building, to have the surrounding property owner sign off on their application, only because the Land Development Code recognizes footprint lots as an ownership structure. But when it comes to applying a landscaping plan, a lighting plan, those types of things affect the surrounding property. And thus, for zoning purposes, we look at the parcel as a whole, not just the footprint of the building.
That's exactly what I was hoping you were going to say. So as long as the proper applicants are signed off on everything, I don't have any problem with them. I like the way that's been done. I just, as long as the legalese gets taken care of by people who understand that part of it, then I'm sure the planning and zoning office will be happy. So the piece about offering one of the two required site feature requirements of section 604E4AV, which are listed out here, but I only found one of them that was being proposed, which is the direct pedestrian access to the sidewalk. Did I miss one? Is there something? Was there another one in there?
I don't know. I was thinking that the putting in a park bench and a bike rack together, possibly something along those lines would work, as far as for, some kind of either, I don't want to call it a pocket park, but some kind of feature in that vein was really what I was thinking is the second one.
Yeah, the list is by no means exhaustive. It's or other similar acceptable thing, and the goal is to promote community participation or connectivity or multimodal strategies to make it more comfortable for many people of whatever mode of transportation to enjoy. So,
for instance, in the past, the ice cream shop, when it was open, had, I think they would bring it in the season, but bring it back out. They had like a picnic table there for seating for people, stuff like that. So we could bring back something along those lines. I want to make sure that they're still opening again before I necessarily build something for that sort of.
you have the challenge of having multiple tenants in there, so they're not really up to you to decide whether they're there or not. It's up to them to decide if they're there. So, all right. I think that working with staff, you can figure out a way. I mean, in general, you're trying to activate the sidewalk space somehow, and I don't know if the mannequin with the dress on it works, but they
Should I
may
put the
not
bench
be there
next to
anymore.
that,
But that's been sort of an icon for a long time. So I'm happy to be flexible on that, but I think we want to sort of look at exactly how that requirement is being fulfilled, even if it seems like a stretch to say I'm tweaking one corner of the inside of the building and now all this other stuff applies. You know, I'm not willing to be that hard about it. I don't think it is fair. In other words, that pro rata thing that we talked about, where you're really only, you're doing something nobody was even gonna notice if you didn't tell them you did it, right? So anyway, I would
Maybe the
continue
people
to.
who will live there will notice it. I mean, I think if people are going to live upstairs, it might be nice to have this sidewalk area be more, you know,
Or maybe the picnic table's there all the time, and
or just. I
it's
mean, I
not
think that
related to the ice
to
cream.
me, like the entrance there is not. I mean, and now that entrance is not just for the businesses. Now it's going to be for people who live there, and I feel like there could be
So,
improvements that would make it more appealing aesthetically for the neighborhood and for the people who might rent there.
Okay.
If we're allowed to say that, I don't know.
I think
That's
you're
just that's my opinion when I drive by there.
I would be. I'm actually more excited that the non-compliant lighting is being removed and replaced with dark sky compliant lights, because it's a far worse intrusion on the character of the surrounding area to have basically get blinded by spotlights.
The surrounding
be a
area
very- yeah.
being the parking lot in the back of the building, or
You can see you driving anywhere. There've been some flagrant places where it's notable from the street. I can't remember if these are, but it's just not. It's a style of lighting that was. It's easy to light up your parking lot by shining a spotlight on it, but that's not really allowed, and it's not ideal. So
Okay.
to me it's a better. I'm happy to see that be improved than almost anything. So.
would it be possible to maybe add shrouds to them or something? I just want to make sure that the parking lot. and
The
safe.
point is you don't want to be looking at the light source. So if there's a shield or a shroud or something like that, that can be added, or they just simply get pointed down, or there's so many ways to do it.
Okay.
That's it was identified in the in the staff report here, and I was under the assumption that was happening, but I think that should happen. And if it's just adjusting the fixture angle, then that takes care of it. That's fine.
Okay.
But
that
was the big one for me.
So
I'll point out too, while we're talking about lighting, that again, this is a great example of how footprint lots apply to this situation. We agreed in discussion leading up to this application that in normal circumstances, they would be required to submit a full lighting plan for all of the surrounding businesses and open land back there, realizing that it wasn't appropriate for this application and landed on, let's look at those exterior lights on the building and focus on that instead.
That would be a big improvement.
And the other piece, as you point out, were there other residential portions of this building before, or is this going to be the first?
there are other.
There are.
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. On
They're
the
in
north
the
side
back,
of the building.
right?
Yeah.
Are they in the back?
There's
other
one in the
side?
front, one in the back. One directly above Karen's closet, and then one in the back. Yeah.
Are they accessed through the same?
No, it's
set
the
of
other side.
stairs? Okay.
Yeah, it's up the ramp that's there actually.
All right. Anybody else? There was a landscaping question in that we're being asked to determine whether or not there is the landscaping requirement based on a change of use rather than constructing anything. I don't know, I feel like that front entry porch is where all the action wants to take place.
Mhm.
Like that's the only new thing, and it's the only thing that is a functional aspect of the new use. And just wondering if there's a way that gets treated that
Like some kind of greenery or.
I was imagining, is there something that, you know, like is it greenery? Is there a potted plant or several? Is there?
I
You know,
think we
what
could
happens
do a
there?
potted plant of some sort.
You're
I
kind
think
of
it's like an,
suggesting it already.
yeah, I feel like it's like even like an on or some sort of like cover, just so it makes it feel like you're not only entering the businesses, but this goes to some apartments. It doesn't have a nice, like, welcoming feel at the moment. I don't know if anyone else has driven by there, but yeah.
It's been the business end of the building for a long
Yeah.
time.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I think that I like the suggestion that we consider softening the entry area somehow to identify it and to, like, if you live there and you told somebody to come over, how do they know where to go? You know, like it doesn't say, you know, 2.5 Park Terrace or whatever the address is, like this.
Mhm.
You know, what signifies a residential entry in otherwise you know, larger building.
I mean,
And-
right now it looks like you're going into the business. Like that door is for the businesses,
Mm-hmm.
not for anything else. Yeah.
Admittedly, that's the same for the other apartments, but
Yeah.
you know, it's a if you know you know sort of situation.
And they're in the back.
Mm.
Where do the other ones go?
One is in the back, and the other entrance is up the ramp by Karen's closet.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's some stairs in there.
All right. I'm gonna go with planters or some
Planter.
other you know, some other similar treatment that provides a little break in the you know, so
As
that
long as we're not pulling up concrete. think we
I
can
don't
talk
want
about
anyone pulling
something.
up concrete. They just spent a lot of time redoing all that out there, you know, as part of a I don't know what we call that project, but parks, you know,
The rest of the crescent
with
connector.
a lot of attention spent on the sidewalk. We're not pulling them up. Yeah, so let's add a condition that says
Some kind of
that some landscaping effort that's more residential in scale and nature, centered around the residential entry is appropriate. And I didn't really have any other questions. I thought it was, you know, in general, the questions that we have about the project in general of a much larger nature than the minutia of what's really happening, because I think it's pretty clear that the existing building is multi-purposed and easily supports the change of use. And you know, let's see if we can make some tweaks to maybe some of the operational features like the lighting and the connection for residents to the surrounding area and for the members of the public walking by to see it. So you've seen the plan for the developments that are scheduled or possible for the other lots. We saw them. Didn't we see some of these
This would have been
a couple years
quite
ago?
a while.
Chittenden Crossing, yeah.
2018.
Well, it reminds us of what's possible if you really want to plan a residential development. And we're not quite there with this, but those are the things that we need to be thinking about if we're gonna start saying this is residential.
Mhm.
So we're asking you to, you know, maybe slide into that realm just a little bit, and understanding that the essence of this building is not going to change that much.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, maybe there's signage. You know, I don't know if I mean, if this was an apartment building that had, you know, 50 people living in it that all entered through a nondescript door, you know, there would be something.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Part of me expects that signage might be something inside if it's not that many units. If it is 50, then,
Well,
you know, sure. But
the post office, where did they get the mail? Is there mail delivery to
there's
some
a
central
cluster
location?
mailbox out front.
All right, I think you've heard enough. I don't have anything else to say. Anyone else?
I'm sorry, where is the map? Where is the cluster mailbox? Like,
Is
it
the,
like out
is
in
the ramp marked on there? It's at the bottom of the ramp.
as in the
right-
ramp between the two buildings?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's in here. Okay.
It's directly at the bottom of the ramp on the
Okay.
north section there. It's actually where that's also where the water out for fire is.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, anyone else? Any members of the public have something to comment on this application? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Before we close the public
Oh.
hearing, did you want to ask about the dumpster as well? I've currently got as a condition of approval that the dumpster needs to be screened from view from the public right of way.
Yes, that I did actually. Thank you for
Yeah.
the reminder. I'm a little torn on that one, both because of the common land thing that we spoke about, but also because it's a temporary location. I'm a little worried about putting up and building dumpster enclosures if they're going to be torn down as soon as the project for the lot right behind it starts. I could move them
Well,
maybe behind
let's
the building.
back up for a second there.
Okay.
So there's a master plan.
Yes.
The dumpster, I would prefer that the dumpster and dumpster enclosure not be addressed in the master plan. Cause it's serving more than, like, why are we gonna move it? Because it would be in the way of
where we have
something-
the dumpsters right now, I'm pretty sure is going to be part of road and other infrastructure when they start that.
And is that shown on another master plan somewhere?
I believe.
The Chittenden Crossing master plan is using the space where the trash and recycling for this building is currently located for other purposes.
And so where does the dumpster go after that? So this is a temporary,
It is temporary.
Condition.
Yes.
I would therefore tend to agree that it's not in anyone's best interest to build one they're going to tear down. I don't know how long what the time frame is between now and when something happens, but I would expect that the master, if all of that's going to change, it's going to show up on a plan somewhere.
Yep.
And we should probably address it at that
The
point.
one will be
Yeah.
dealt with. Yeah.
Where would you imagine moving the dumpsters to at that point?
If the master plan stays the same, which I don't know when they would be building this or any of that information. If the master plan stays the same, I'd have to talk to a couple people about potential options. There might be a place in that area it could stay and we could build an enclosure. It might be that it goes on the north side though, because there's sort of a space between the three buildings that has nothing going on, and I believe that's where the plan was to have trash.
All right, so I'm
This
gonna
is
say that
memory, so
for me, and everyone else is entitled to an opinion, but for me, adding this couple of apartments is not gonna modify a dumpster requirement beyond what it's already there for. But when the dumpster moves or the whole master plan starts to change, then we're gonna want to see the solution.
Sure.
At that point, and we'll expect that dumpster is improved by bringing it into compliance with the, don't let the public see it.
Yep.
Rule. Is that fair?
So the dumpster's currently not moving.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They asked us. We were asked at the conceptual to show where they are.
So the dumpster there, they already serve the building. They continue to serve the building. They're essentially existing non-conforming elements of a plan which is about to change. So or will change in the future. So when it changes, then we're going to want to see the result.
Sure.
Now, would we make that a condition of our approval here, or is that just a
I think it does it. It changes number 5.
Yeah, I wrote it to either relocate or screen. That the land development code provides vegetative materials, fencing, those sort of things are typically used from screening. So that's how it's written in the staff report currently.
Michael, have we seen the Chittenden Crossing plan, or
I
mean,
thought-
did
Yeah,
that, did that
those-
come before this group? I don't remember.
Yeah, years ago, the
Okay.
master plan, which is it does not give them the right to build, but gives the vision to the community for approval, essentially, of what direction they're going. I'd be happy to share those plans with you
Yeah, I mean,
tomorrow so that you can
yeah.
view them. I shared them with Dylan
Okay.
months back.
I thought I brought
Um,
them in
I
one
don't-
night, didn't
We
I?
walked through them.
I have them.
I don't remember.
I
Well, I'll
have
sh-
you
Yeah,
go
now
through
that
your
it would be
office and
interesting
bring
to
things
see
in.
it in conjunction with like this building and
Absolutely.
Like, now.
Yeah.
That would be great. Thank you.
So if we just strike number 5, is that acceptable, or do you guys want to make some
Um,
provision for the dumpsters at such time that they are changed?
So you want to just get rid of number 5 because of the larger project?
I think it's acceptable to me
Yeah.
to get rid of number 5.
Yeah.
Although it's good to have it flagged, and I want to make sure we come back to that at the appropriate time, and I'm sure Michael will have his eyes on that when it happens.
Would it be possible, and I don't want this to be like onerous for you at all, but like any kind of temporary like wood slat fencing in front of the dumpster? Effectively, I don't want Chittenden Crossing to take 5 years to come to fruition.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, there's this non-compliant dumpster that this would be our one opportunity to say, you know, spend $50 and put.
I feel like
Some
the
wood in
land will
front of
have
it.
a different issue if it's been sitting the same for that long with no other opportunity. But of course.
The issue with the dumpster enclosures, in my mind, is that if it screens it, and I don't know exactly how the language could be interpreted, but if you're screening it from the public view, right? So that's not once you're on site. I mean, you could build a one-sided wall if it did the right kind of screening, because the real issue for dumpsters is the only way to empty them is, you know, to have somebody's big truck come in and do stuff. So as soon as you put up a wall, it either has to have a gate in it, and now now you need a post to go down to hold the gate up. And
Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
it's
yeah.
it turns into a more difficult engineering effort than $50. So I would be more inclined to say, if you're not like, does the question again is, it does this particular change of use trigger enough of your jurisdiction that you're gonna go make them fix all this stuff? And I'm my tendency is that would be great, but understanding that there's another wave coming, you're kind of, you know, I'm sensitive to having them spend a lot of money to do that. If you have no sense of the timing at all, I mean, we're gonna live with seeing a dumpster for another. I mean, you got to remember when we all start. Well, when some of us know the history of this building, it was a working lumberyard, and you know, like the dumpster probably was the least of the things we have to look at, you know, the services building. So I'm not even sure I could tell you where the dumpster is when I drive by it, you know. Like, do you know where it is? Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. And my feeling about the dumpster enclosures is that I just watched them take one down behind the McGillicuddy's building, where it's over here. And I think it was because the actual truck to, you know, the garbage truck couldn't actually access the dumpster. So it became an issue. I mean, it's not nice to look at, but it's like, if you're going to have it there, you got to make sure it's accessible.
And you go by it every day,
Yeah.
and you don't
It
know where it
doesn't-
is. So
I don't know where it is.
the real question as to whether the public can really see the dumpster during their normal course of events. So I'm going to say, for me, I'm not worried about the dumpster up And I don't need to be unanimous, but there needs to be enough of us that feel the same way.
I'm comfortable. Straight.
Fine with it.
We're okay striking five. All right. So are we okay closing the public hearing now? Everybody okay? And do I have a motion, or do you want to talk about it first? See anything else to talk about, or can we have a motion?
Yeah, we can have a motion.
All right.
Did you go?
Nope.
All right.
I'm good.
Let's see how we're doing this. I move that the DRB approve the final site plan to add 3 dwelling units to an existing 3-story mixed-use building with 2 dwelling units and commercial space in the Village Center District by Park Street Ventures LLC owner, with the conditions as adjusted, in that we strike condition number 5, and then we request that there be some additional landscaping that's residential in nature but does not require concrete to be moved.
Anyone second?
I can go.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you have some items to work through with staff based on the proposed conditions, but I know that it'll work out fine. Okay. Thank you all for your consideration on that one. There was a lot happening. Public hearing number 3, site plan review for a pocket park at 1 Main Street by the City of Essex Junction owner. Who is presenting this? All right, come on up, and I don't think you were here. We've got to swear in and all that. Michael will ask you a few questions there.
Yeah, let me pull that back. All right, when you're ready, raise your right hand and take the following oath. I hereby swear that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God, or under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do, I swear.
Perfect.
All right, welcome. So I've been aware of this project for the better part of a decade. No, I don't know if anybody else knows about this project. So why don't you and Michael tell us what this is all about?
I can tell you what I've been a part of. So my name is David Burton. I'm with Ginkgo Design, and I was hired to look at the park and to design a pocket park for that space. I guess it's been a year and a half or so ago. And that design was not the first design for the park. There were multiple designs before that one. The design was received well. It was more than what the city wanted to spend on the park at this point. I think part of that related to the future plans for that what do you call that stretch, that
Part of the
Part of Main Street?
the Main
Yeah.
Street, the future Main Street development. So my involvement included kind of coming back and saying, okay, well, if we wanted to address this park with a set budget, and design it in a way that recognizes that pieces of it may be temporary or change based on future designs, what would that look like? So that's where we are today with the design being something that I tried to use elements that could be reused or moved or kind of more flexible. We talked about the surface being just kind of staying what it is and doing an overlay of asphalt as a way of keeping things flexible and preserving, restricting some of the overall expense. And then looking at shade structures to still kind of provide the overall desire of a space that has some shade to be able to be enjoyed by the public. So that's kind of how we landed on what you're seeing today.
I'll just, if I may, add a little backstory to this, which is the site is contaminated. The concept is whatever is on top of it doesn't want to be disturbed, and therefore, it was an old gas station. So, I'm going to say it's probably highly regulated what might need to happen if you go below the surface and disturb the underlying soil. Is that
to some degree? They did core drilling testing that was a part of kind of seeing what we were up against, and it actually was favorable. What they found that it wasn't maybe as bad as they had thought that it was going to be. So a lot of the space isn't going to need the same degree of remediation that was originally thought would be potential. That's
good to know.
Yeah. So as we were kind of looking at some of the budget and some of the different things of having to go below grade, that was actually in our favor. So it's not
It brings up a whole other line of questioning for me, but I don't know if it's appropriate since the city is proposing the project and must have rationale, but like for me, a park is something that provides a respite from the otherwise, and I'm just gonna say paved or hardscape of a city, and I'll use both of those terms loosely. Essex Junction is not it's not as urban as other places where you're thinking you need that respite. Although the concept that a tree would be nice seems to spring to mind, and my understanding before was that was not felt to be achievable given the level of disturbance of the soils and so forth. So I'm not sure where that goes. It's how if you've been around long enough, one of the biggest complaints that happened around Five Corners was when all the trees came down across the way for McGillicuddy's building.
Sure.
Had been a large green space
Yeah.
owned by a bank, right? So it wasn't a public space, but it was acting like one. And when that was redeveloped by a new owner, many people felt the loss of that green space. And so this, was always a goal of the city planners to find a way to reintroduce a green space. And this is a likely candidate, but its contaminated nature meant that the price tag would be pretty high. And so I know that's been an issue, for people going forward. What do we do here that allows us to, kind of keep this or create a respite in a park-like setting without going through that large expense. So I may have Michael comment on that because he's been I haven't heard any of the planning behind this. I haven't really seen this design. For me, it looks ideal for a summertime setup where, a lot of the street activities that we've seen, these kind of, I don't want to call them temporary parks, but something with modular materials and a little sun canopy, have been known to show up for a weekend. Like someone will come in and say, we're going to block the street off and we're going to set up a living room and add on. It happens all the time, actually, in some places. So this feels, like it's heading in that direction. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm fine with the concept, but I'm looking for this Essex Junction opinion on what they're proposing to do here, because I know what your design response, I can see it, it's fine, but maybe just a little background on how you ended up with this direction.
Sure. Well, I don't have much more other than the narrative that Chris included, as I was not the designer on this project. So the ground contamination information that Chris provided was that this project was scoped such that anything that goes beyond the top layer of asphalt would not be included in the project proposal, which is how we got to the design that we see here. Also noted in the narrative is that the project does propose the addition of a future street tree. We applied for a grant to accommodate that and did not receive funding. So we have that in the designs that you see in front of you on the maple side, and still plan to add that when funding becomes available. So a budget and the assumed contamination levels were the major influencing factors to get to the design where we have it.
And do you see this as being a predominantly seasonal use, or do you hope that this will offer some park flavor all year long? Like, does it get plowed and maintained? And
the hope is to have it plowed and maintained, and I think having the canvas shade sails allows for some winterization and flexibility. I will offer, it is anecdotal, but walking near Five Corners for lunch during my office hours, I have seen people use it during colder season. Obviously not as often as in the summer, and this is without the actual park installed, so there is clearly a desire for people to have benches around. So I think this would be an improvement from existing conditions.
And we've gotten used to buying coffee and whatever out of the trucks.
Yeah.
Or the little stand. So,
So you mentioned maintenance, because I think it's a lovely design, but I think maintenance and our weather and all these things. So is that something that the city is just going to take on, or it's not added in the overall budget? I mean, someone's going to build it and design it, but then it's all about what is it going to look like in 3 years, and how, there's obviously a cost to the city on maintaining that, and where do those funds come? Who, is there people, how does that work?
I might lean on David to hear if Chris had discussed Public Works involvement with the park's maintenance during the design considerations.
Yeah, I think it was something that was discussed. It's because the plantings are all potted in pots, very similar to what it is now.
Yeah.
I would assume the maintenance would be kind of a similar approach.
Okay.
do they get removed during the winter time? Did someone come along and pick all these up and take them away and bring them back?
No, they can be left out and when winterized. And really those potted those planters could even be used for decorations for the winter as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different winter interest kind of opportunities for those as well. So.
And I didn't see any construction details or anything. The things that are rendered as wood, are they how do we make these? Is it they're boxes that have the material that's looks like the front grill? Is it? You can just walk us through a little bit of that.
We haven't developed them to that level of detail yet. As I was designing them, what I envisioned those being were either being like something like pressure treated, or potentially a composite material, but something that would obviously be rot resistant. And then the inner portion would be a metal, whether that be a corrugated steel or something like that. But the using black as a color was something that was recommended as a good way for graffiti and those kinds of things, making it a surface that's easier to clean or easier to paint over. So that's why I kind of gravitated toward black for the for those pieces.
And the lattice work on top is just more for a semi privacy. I mean, it
Right.
filtered kind of screen look.
Yeah, to provide some separation from the road
Mhm.
visually. So there was some feeling of kind of being in an enclosed separated space. So that was the idea of using those trellis features. Yeah. And I envisioned those as being something that would be probably like painted powder coated metal.
Metal.
Yeah.
There be a sign with a name?
Does it have a
That's
name?
a doozy.
There is, yes. So this is not final what I'm about to share here, but yes. So this land, for the history of the park, used to be connected to the Firebird parcel, which is owned by Gabe Handy. So in the deed for the One Main Street Pocket Park, there are a couple of stipulations. One is that the park is to be named Gabriel and Diane Handy Park. The other is that this park fulfills future potential landscaping requirements for the Firebird parcel. Those are written into the deed of this land. So this was shared by Gabe with me today, and I wanted to add as a potential condition of approval for the board to consider that the applicant, the city, shall work with Gabe Handy on the design and integration of a memorial plaque sign for the entrance of the park.
3 feet by 3 feet.
Is what's proposed. And so I think finding one that would architecturally fit, and I think granite was originally proposed, something that would make
I'm
sense
reading
on the entrance.
granite. Yeah, they can do great things in the granite, carving and sandblasting and stuff. So
Yeah.
it would look almost exactly like that.
Yep.
Which is pretty neat.
So can
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
ask
yeah.
it? So this was originally Gabe's land that he owned, and he gave it to the city, or how did that?
Yeah, that's correct. I don't have the parcel in front of me, but you'll note that the park is on, might be able to see a portion of it here on the plans. The portion that's drawn with David's design is the park itself, but it used to be attached to the parcel where the Firebird Cafe is behind it,
Okay.
and that was donated to the city by Gabe.
And so the other thing is there seems to be a pretty severe demarcation between the park and the Firebird, and are we gonna try to make that look
The quality
nice?
of the
We're gonna try to make that transition nice. I mean, because Firebird is attracting a lot of people into that area, which is wonderful, and the other food truck, I can't remember, but it seems like we're gonna improve this little piece here. But is that Firebird? Are they they're in charge of that area in front of their building?
Yeah, the what you see on the plans is drawn with a kind of a firm black line. It also runs across the back of those back row of
Yeah.
benches, and that was part of the design intention, was to provide some amount of demarcation between the Firebird Cafe's outdoor seating and the
Yeah.
public park, understanding that people may pick up their food and walk it over to the
Yeah.
park. So
But I mean, does the city maybe want to help make it all look nice? You know, if you have crumbling asphalt right here and then nice asphalt here, right? It seems a
yeah.
little. It might look a little. I don't know.
As in,
outside of
while
the
you
scope
have
of this
the-
project.
While you're
While
doing
you have
it,
the asphalt people
like,
there, could they just
could
happen
they-
to run over there?
yeah,
a little bit?
because I mean,
Yeah.
from a aesthetic.
I think that's beyond our purview,
Okay,
but
well,
that's a
I mean, it's like
excellent
you're looking at
suggestion.
it and you're like, wow, that looks so nice, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this looks.
Yeah, like if the owner of
Kind
that
of-
parcel winds up having business before us in some
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah, I don't know.
and currently that's just an overlay. It's just a pavement overlay.
Yep.
If it's not really that bad underneath, we don't want to. I suppose as soon as you tear it up and put anything else down, the budget's gone.
Yeah. I mean, and we are going to need to bring electric to the parcel.
Mhm.
And so that's for the outdoor lighting So that's something that there will need to be some excavation in order to achieve that. And then also the 8 posts that will hold the shade structures will all need footings, and so those are the main excavation.
Are we imagining those are precast lamppost based kind of things that just get dropped in a hole and filled back up?
I believe so. The shade, the company that designed the shade structures is going to have an engineer drawing produced for those. So I lean on what they recommend, but I would assume that would be an option.
Similar footings or bases are used for flagpoles and
Right. Those
things like that
Yeah.
are commonly dropped in.
Yeah.
And you bolt your post down to the top of it.
Yeah.
The engineers want you to leave it up higher than the ground so that the plows don't whack stuff off and
Yeah.
cut it.
And I think since this is a shade structure, it has lift too.
Yeah.
So I think that there's gonna be some engineering.
So do we
necessary.
see this again, Michael, or is this a concept
What?
thing?
No, this
final?
is one and done, as it's a new site plan for this new parcel that was subdivided from the old Firebird lands. If application materials change that would necessitate to go in front of the board, it would come back.
And did you, I think you said the tree is there, but you didn't get the funding for
We
it?
did not get the funding for the tree as a part of this. Let me pull up Chris's exact wording. Project proposes the future addition of a street tree supported by an underground silva-cell infrastructure. If additional funding becomes available, this tree will not be included in the initial phase of this project.
And do we think the tree is too close to the roof?
It's I believe it's in line with the other street
the other
trees. Yeah, and they're selected for a certain habit too that allows for
Yeah.
a higher canopy.
Okay.
So yeah.
Noting that visibility with the tree was a concern during the initial design. In the top right corner of the design, you'll note it says relocate intersection sign, since we noticed the tree was
I know,
blocking
'cause
the
there's a lot
intersection
of-
sign.
There's the walk sign. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot going on right there, and
Yeah.
so I'm just
So I guess for me, there's a lot going on at that intersection already. We've had, cracked, deteriorated, junky looking pavement there for a while. There've been things plunked down on it to try and make it look a little better. I see, maybe 2 or 3 possible responses to this, which is to, really make it green, which means removing most of the pavement and figure out what else you're going to do with it. But the budget constraints and anyone's ability to get planning and process through them, as was pointed out, it's been designed several times already. So my vote would be to get the currently shown improvements in there and live with them for a while, and they until somebody decides that they're really going to put the appropriate amount of money in to do something here more permanent. And that may, and we all were saying, well, we got to wait till the Crescent Connector comes in, because that's really the key to allowing anything else to really start to happen. That's now in. We have an opportunity to evaluate the possibility of additional streetscape modifications in that area. Which would ultimately, if something is designed, it would be a much broader design effort with many other opportunities. And so there is a reason to have some hesitancy in doing something really permanent here right off the bat. So I like the concept in general. I think it'll definitely improve the corner. It'll give us something to look at that has a little bit of cohesion and purpose. I share your wish that the remainder of the what's visibly all one place up to the Firebird front door could be similarly improved or treated, but that's not, and we can't really make them do that. It's not really, not yet anyway, but and it's not our land or jurisdiction to work on right now. So I kind of appreciate that the city is trying to make these improvements and carry forward with a concept to treat the space and at least try something, right? Rather than just leaving it paved.
I can comment too on the grander vision. I know that the city 100% agrees with that, and even put in the narrative here that part of the park's design was to maintain flexibility to integrate it into more pedestrianized space in the future. The Design Five Corners plan, which has happened in the past, envisioned a couple different options for Main Street that would incorporate more green space and pedestrian space. We've got the ongoing Connect the Junction transit-oriented development project, which is calling for more pedestrian space in this area as well. So I think not only is that on the horizon, that was part of this park's design, was to maintain flexibility so that it wouldn't be too difficult to integrate with future changes.
And I guess my criticism is that I think people are going to interpret this as being the outdoor seating for Firebird, the way that McGillicuddy's has outdoor seating that is for McGillicuddy's, rather than being for the public. I would encourage us to think of Five Corners as a singular human-based space that cars are allowed to drive through, but it is for humans. And I feel like the more that we can connect this directly to Memorial Park and to Lincoln Hall, so that pedestrians are like, yeah, I am at Lincoln Hall. I'm allowed to just walk over there whenever I want, rather than hitting the walk button, waiting 2.5 minutes. And then, because it's clearly 5 tiny spaces for humans within a larger space that is for cars.
I hear what you're saying. I have 2 responses to that, which are interesting. I had the opportunity to hang out in Washington D.C. a little bit over the last number of months, and they have these big parks which are at radial intersections, and they visually appear to be one place, but because of the traffic, they're really not. And it is interesting because you get different groups of people at different corners of, depending on which side they're on, and maybe those are big enough and well entrenched enough that everybody's happy. And my sense is that the more interesting problem that you bring up is this connection or disconnection to Firebird, because it's, you know, I almost want the wall between the park and Firebird to be enhanced so that you don't have that bleed through, and you know, a good portion of this is kind of you know, blocked off. But it's, maybe we need a couple of more you know, components of the modular you know, extended out the other direction by the bike, so that you don't get that sense that it's but you know, that's, I'll let the I mean, the city's got to figure out, okay, you know, if that is true and I want my park to be special and not look like it, you know, fell apart halfway across and then turned into the Firebird parking lot, then you know, they spring for a couple of more pieces and drop them in, because they're, you know, the design language is all there, just a matter of the placement and the treatment, you know, creating that separation. So I like the comment a lot. I agree that we've been wrestling with that back half of you know, why is it just I stop my pavement there, and otherwise there's no reason to understand what the separation is. Yeah.
And the other element, the other thought that I had, I got an email right before this meeting about a branding committee for Essex Junction. And so to the degree that these can be any color that you want, assuming that the branding committee has a color palette for Essex Junction, that might be a good opportunity to introduce that branding in a very visible location.
Yeah, and as long as it's not red, you automatically distinguish yourself
Yeah.
from Firebird.
And then that would perhaps be a cheap way to then put a similarly colored bench in front of Lincoln Hall, to sort of visually say this is all one space, and then introduce that color somehow at Memorial Park.
I think that's an interesting suggestion. I wonder if that timeline works out, just because
Yeah.
I think this is a set for construction in 2025, right? And my understanding, the branding committee is they're in the process of selecting a firm, and those.
It's not
Yeah,
gonna be
that'll
ready.
a long time.
Yeah.
I've been through
well,
a couple rebrands myself. It's
Exactly.
a lengthy
Yeah.
If
process.
you're rebranding with sailcloth, it's that you'll probably be able to redo the sailcloth or get a color
Yeah.
or something. But
We also
For
to
now,
meet,
yeah.
we also to meet grant requirements need to complete construction in 2026, if I'm aware.
Good spot for a little free library.
oh yeah,
I love
You
those.
can plop one in that little space with your, what do you have, like $200 spare?
I thought somebody makes them and they
I
it's
think sometimes
essentially
they're like donated
yeah.
because
we
could get one in John's honor.
is there a sense where the sign goes
Gabe's hope is to have it
like out on the corner, or is it tucked in the back? Any idea where it actually is?
let me see if I can zoom in. It might not be the most well lit, but he was hoping for the entry archway above the Main Street entrance to the park. Similar to what his building plaques are kind of like above the entrance to his apartment building.
Gonna put a 3x3 memorial stone above the archway.
I want to be clear that 3x3 sign that was dropped off in my office was dropped off this week, and that we do need time to integrate the size and material and make sure that it would work with the park.
Understated.
My own sense that his gesture and the stone and the nature of the stone is more appropriate as a ground mounted object. If that evolves to something else that turns into an archway, that is the kind of a customary gateway type thing for the entry to a park. So I'm not sure that's a bad thing, but I don't know, as a stone is your material at that point, it wants to be something else.
Sure.
Well, and I feel like that would exacerbate the separation from Memorial Park. That if you have Gabe and Diane Handy Park, and then you have Memorial Park, they're literally two separate places, two separate parks.
That's why I like the idea, and this would be maybe the branding thing coming back, but if you can support the concept that it's a series of connected parks,
Yeah.
and one happens to have a memorial to Gabe and Diane, and a stone somewhere that people can see as they're touring the different parks. Well, that one's for the veterans, and this one was the donated piece, and the spirit is great. So I think that comes down to that branding again. It's just a matter of starting to weave the story into how all these are connected and have similarities and connectivity without necessarily getting too excited about calling them different neighborhoods, or what I mean.
Yeah, it occurs to me that St. Albans has on the east side of their main park they have their historic district, and there's kiosks, or I guess placards describing each of the buildings. And that could be an interesting way to have Brownell Library, which was donated by the Brownell family, I think.
Well, named after, and yeah.
And Lincoln Hall, I don't know Lincoln.
I don't know why that, I can't remember why that name came up. It's Lincoln Street, but the building itself was so many different things over time that I'm not sure it follows the same rules.
Yeah. But each of the parcels would have an interesting story about how it came to be this public space.
So that's good for branding. Though I was involved years ago in the byway signage, right? So the greater project encompasses most of Lake Champlain, immediate basin, but Essex Junction was approached to host a sign or two for the train station and Five Corners and the whole story behind that. I had a hand in the panel that's hanging on the back of the train station, because we were doing the train station modifications at the time. Let's say Essex Junction has a branding effort that starts to tell a story. Because all of these buildings, you're right, are donated, or they were given, or substantially financed by city resident, village resident, and that story is powerful. So anyway, we're getting sidetracked here. I'm hunting for the motion because I don't know that we have any more questions. I think the lighting is well presented and it's been engineered pretty much already. I will say that the uniformity ratio of 11.27 is higher than I normally see. I think that's, I don't know how that works or what the deal is with that, but that was, you want to explain that?
Yeah, well, so this is actually the main topic that I wanted to lean into tonight. I love the discussion we're having on such a critical point of our city, right at Five Corners. That being said, there are remaining questions, I think, about the lighting plan. As presented, the light fixtures are supposed to go on top of the tall poles, which are 13 feet in height. Because of the orientation of them, the lighting basically filters through the canvas shade sails. As presented, I think we're unsure of how this will look. There's some indication that it would look nice at night, kind of like an architectural feature, but it might bounce in a strange way. And given that it's the board's purview to comment on integration into the surrounding area and the village center as a whole, wanted to get thoughts on if the lighting plan meets what you would expect for such a prominent feature right at Five Corners.
Does the lighting calculations and the photometrics here suggest that where the ground light levels prepared with the canopies in place or without them?
With them in place, I believe.
So there'd be some light shading underneath them, and hot spots might occur and be just odd. So it is interesting. I mean, there are whole designs in other parks where the illumination of some delicate object up in the air is the thing. That's what you see, because light can play across it and do great things, and provide, especially at night, very interesting object, almost an art object in the park at will. All you have to do is turn the lights on or turn them off. So I don't know that that's a key concern. I think that if over time we decide that it looks distracting or there's something with it that's odd, I think there's opportunity to make changes in either the sails canopies or the lights. I mean, take them and the way they look like they're mounted, you could swivel them around and put them on the other side of the post or something, and you know, it would change all of that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, if I could comment, I actually don't believe that the that layout is filtered through the shade, because there was no real way to know the
I was gonna wonder how are they
yeah,
gonna do this.
the exact
And when you look at those, you know, I have some experience with the shade materials. It looks like depending on the weave, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
the window blinds. I mean,
yeah,
it's even a 3% open,
yeah,
you can see through.
right.
You know, so depending on the weave of that material, it'll have way different characteristics. And I think, you know, getting a little more technical on what exactly that is and who offers it. And there are a lot of commercial vendors out there that have these products on the shelf, and you know, they're usually polypropylene and don't deteriorate and
Right.
do a great job of providing that sunscreen. But they do kind of let, you know, things through. So I don't know how you would model. I mean, it would be,
Yeah.
you might be able to model it, but
No, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
believe that this is modeled that way. I think our thought was because of those, you know, factors, it was going to be at least when because the shades will be removed for the winter time. So
Mhm.
this is what the lighting will do
Yeah.
during, you know, half the year.
Yeah.
So
and I'm sure they'll be on time clocks or photo sensors or something that basically shut them off at an appropriate time.
I did get confirmation that a timer is currently planned.
Okay.
Because there are going to be residents who look down on this. So if it's like a reflective top, or like a satin top, that might be super annoying. Like the people on the top floor might have this spotlight inadvertently shining into the ceiling.
All right. Does the board have any comment on the items on page 4 that Michael has asked us to consider? So I'll just read them so that we can agree on yes or no. So Development Review Board should confirm the proposed 100% lot coverage limit for this application. It's already 100%. I would love to see it softened a little, but I can understand why they're not doing that. But I think the lot coverage limit at 100% is our allowable limit, so I'm not seeing a problem with that. That number 2 is DRB should determine the applicability of evaluating site plan application as a commercial or mixed use building with no setback requirement. I'm not. Is that because there's not really a park
Nailed it.
category?
This is just an
And-
LDC technicality that says that in the village center, commercial and mixed use buildings do not have setbacks, and residential buildings do. It makes no specification for other types of buildings.
This is clearly not I don't know that it falls into any category, but the category that mostly falls into for me is temporary. In that it's a design effort to activate a currently vacant and run down or unimproved portion of town that we'd all like to see boost up a little. So it's not supposed to be it's designed to be taken away and changed at someone's discretion. So I don't know if any of these really apply. Anybody else have a thought? I don't see why we would need to worry about a setback requirement. I think, in terms of you want it to extend out and cover the whole parcel with at least some gesture, whether it's physically got a structure there or not.
I don't know what it would mean to have a setback on a
Yeah.
park.
Yeah,
It cannot be a park for this portion.
yeah.
Can we not just get rid of that one?
The development, number 3, the development review board should evaluate the proposed development using the design review standards in 604 E4A, which again, I think aren't necessarily applicable. I see staff has, well, they weren't sure what to do with that either, which is why they put it on the list.
Just it's the requirement that any
Yeah.
development in the village center must have that pocket park, pedestrian amenities, which staff believes this application does, but wanted confirmation from the board.
I think you hit enough bells and whistles to cover that one.
Yeah.
Probably 3 out of 5 or something. Development review board should determine if the proposed lighting plan meets the requirements of section 704. I'm gonna guess off the top of my head that it doesn't, just simply because of the uniformity ratio. I think this is out of compliance, but I don't know how to resolve that for folks. I mean, it's just technical engineering material again, so you either meet it or you don't, and if you don't meet it, you get sent back to the drawing board to try and figure out how to meet it. But the uniformity ratio is simply a calculation of the brightest spot to the least brightest spot, and you know, they like to have it be more uniform, but in this case, you know, there might be some appropriate reason to have so-called hot spots, and it, you know, as long as they're not distracting. I don't know, that's a tricky one. I don't know how you adjust that, and we could say that we want you to work on the uniformity ratio and see if you can improve it a little bit, but I don't know that the intention is to have it be uniform. You know, it's not like a parking lot or something where, you know, your uniformity ratio is important because you've got, you know, the common ways to fix it is to raise your lamps up higher and get more spread, or have, you know, if you have shorter ones, you have to have a lot more of them, and both of those are self-defeating in this case. So I don't have an answer for you on that one. The development review board should determine whether the proposed application meets the standards of visual impact in 718G. I think it does this. My opinion is this plan does exactly what it's trying to do, which is provide some relief from the rest of what's going on there. And by design is not intended to exactly follow the rhythm and pattern and so forth of the actual built elements surrounding it. I appreciate the material selection. I think it's totally appropriate and will perform well. I would suggest that the wood, what's represented as wood here, is probably the most sensitive finish to try and maintain and have you know, look good over time. I think the metal panels, people have got 20-year finishes on those, but most of the wood panels that you see, even the phenolic ones or the composite ones, some of them have faded. Yeah, you know, on the buildings downtown, you can see them already. You know, a number of years, like 5 years later, they already look like they've been in the sun too long, kind of thing. So just selection of those materials might be done carefully. If it's actual wood with a real finish on it, those take a lot of maintenance to maintain, like even a varnish or a urethane or something. They usually require more attention than you think when you're putting them in. But anyway, those would be my comments. I really am prepared to just go with the recommended motion at this point, and a suggestion that you continue to work on the lighting scheme to make sure it's doing what you want.
No recommended condition, just a suggestion to work on it.
There are some hot spots. I would suggest you get rid of the hot spots, but I'm not saying having a hotspot is bad if the light is properly downcast and illuminates something important. You know, like if there was an object under the hotspot that you were supposed to see, that would be a good thing. If it's just a shiny part of the canopy, that's, you know, maybe not a good thing. So, anyone else have a further comments?
Is there a way to try it out?
I think because of the nature of this, the whole thing can be adjusted.
Yeah.
You know, I could see the furniture getting modified and moved around a little bit, and you know, I don't know why or when, but it's easily done. You know, so I think we also would have a recommendation that the boundary line between the just what we're calling the back of the park and the Firebird portion be considered.
For improvement.
Yeah.
Could be
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Anyone else? Can I make that motion? Can you turn what I just said into a motion? Have you got enough
What
down
do we
to
have
make
on
the motion?
the?
Recommended motion
Yeah.
as written with conditions to work on improving the lighting scheme to be more intentional, and if that means more uniform, fine, and to consider additional improvements along the boundary edge between you know, Firebird and Parcel.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Is that specifically, it's not so much beyond, like we talked about, that's outside of our purview, but it's more a matter of making that more more apparent, like that separation between
I think it feels like no man's land right now, and what we're saying is that we think the project would be better if it had more intentionality there, like either it wants to bleed into, you know, like even if you, like, I don't know how much pavement happens here, but you know, if the truck still has a quarter of its payload left in it, keep going, you know, like don't send it back. But you'd have to get the Firebird parcel owner to agree that something could happen that would be, you know, it's like two neighbors, right? I'm gonna trim my hedge. Should I just trim my side, or do you want to pitch in and trim your side too? You know.
But it's not related to the fixture, like to the design of the.
I
just wanna
don't
make
think
sure
so.
that
We're seeing that there's an opportunity to do something like add more units along the line
sure.
and strengthen the separation. But there's also an opportunity to maybe keep the surface treatment going long enough so that it doesn't look like you just stopped right there. And so that's something for everybody to sort out. You know, what are we really doing here? Does it really just stop on half of it, and is it really you know, a wall on the other half? And so I think we're just saying you have some options. We would find it beneficial to keep thinking about that part of it. The rest of the design, fine, you know.
Or could we have something? I mean, have you discussed it with the owner of Firebird, and would they want to be involved?
It hasn't been a discussion, to my knowledge. The discussion has revolved around the naming of the park and installing a plaque for this. There is, and again, this comes with the understanding that these are two different property owners at this point. So I would ask if the board does want improved intentional delineation between the park and the surrounding parcel. Yeah, just provide clarity on what exactly you're looking for so that I can move this forward in a way that meets the goals that you're asking us. Because right now I'm hearing we suggest that you do this, but I need it to be a little clearer as to what direction we want to go with this.
Well, some of the thoughts I have are you could take a whole series, like this will be another, maybe 8 or 10, column shaped plantings, and just line them all up there and create a wall. That's not furniture, but it's green, so now I've got, basically a hedge that isn't in the ground, it's movable. You could do that and say, y'all want to see more green? Here you go, right? And that does reinforces the boundary as well as gives you the backdrop of green. But I don't think that's what you're really trying to do, because the rest of the design approach here is to provide some screening that you can see through, and it has a certain height. And so I think for me it's easier just to say, I'll take 2 more of those unit modules and I'm going to put them over there. I don't want to tell you we're not supposed to tell you how to design your thing.
Sure.
We like what you've done. We just find that one particular scene is, feels like it hasn't been fully addressed.
Sure.
And so that's as far as I want to go.
Has the city talked to the owner of Firebird about this project?
Yes,
Okay.
like I just mentioned about the
Okay.
naming of the park.
No, I mean, so they know that this is happening. I just think
Yes.
that they might want to be a part of it and sort of.
If I could
Does that make sense?
one of
Terry?
the considerations was that that whole lot at some point is going to be redeveloped.
Oh, okay.
So there and
maybe
they
that's
can
the-
go
And
all
so
the way
is
up
the-
to that
the
property
green
line.
space over
Okay.
there is
Okay.
another building.
So
Okay.
that was kind of part of like what we were
Okay.
juggling there and trying to find a balance to,
Okay.
was like, at some point there could literally be a building up to that property line.
Okay. So
Um,
so that's what so it's Gabe, the other side, and
Yeah.
and Jake, the owner of, he just owns the business.
Correct.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
That's
he
right.
rents-
Jake.
Okay, that's where I was. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's where I was getting
Yep.
confused. I thought
It is. It's a confusing situation.
that makes complete sense
Yep.
now. Yes.
Yep.
Now okay.
and
I'm
just to speak to the design intent,
getting-
like, because we talked about
Yeah.
whether or not to completely close off that line,
Yeah.
or to recognize that actually some of the traffic for this space is going to be coming from that area.
Yeah.
So then it was kind of like, that striking that balance.
Yeah.
And I will say, if there's a beautiful asphalt line that stops right on that line, well, it's going to be very apparent what's
Yes.
what's theirs and what's
Yeah.
the city's.
Yeah. So that
Um,
totally now
it's
it's
just-
all come into view.
in plan you can see the line, and
Yeah.
your mind understands it. When you're out there, there's no boundary that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just all looks like it's really part of the same
Yeah.
space. So
Okay.
again, either a conscious decision by the 2 landowners to work together on this, or a conscious decision to, I think, maybe strengthen the separation. You could imagine. Well, right now you have. The blue path. Is it a path?
Yeah.
So it has a third. It's a triangular shaped lot. It has a third leg. It's just not on there, right? You could imagine trying to encourage people from Firebird to enter your park, right? And so is that a gateway like it is on the front side, or is that just a wide open boundary, right? There's no path shown intentionally here. There's just a lack of something else.
Yeah.
So that's where
The bottom right there is the view from Firebird.
Yeah.
And so you can see that it was, the goal was to kind of feel like it was closed off, but at the same time, that's like the angle of the one
Yeah.
sat,
Open, yeah.
is
it
to-
does look better from
Yeah. That.
from that view. You get it in plan. That one thing doesn't read that
Yeah.
well.
So
but that,
yeah.
that looks
So
good.
I think that helps you to see that desired separation.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
And without
it does look a lot.
doing a complete
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's good. I think we should make a motion. Make
All
a
right,
motion.
we made the motion. It's. I don't think it got seconded.
I second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for the presentation and
Yeah.
We're hoping we see this soon. This summer would be great.
All right.
Great.
Yeah, okay, good,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, David.
And you, thank you very much for your
Come on
patience. You've
down.
listened to all kinds of stuff. The
Ah,
workings of the
yeah.
city. All right. So last one, this is a variance application requesting relief from a 6-foot high height requirement for a fence to construct a stockade fence that varies from 7 to 7.5 feet at the rear property line at 120 Main Street in the R1 district by Chris Vaughn, owner. Are you Chris?
I am.
Okay, good. Did you do all the swearing in and all that
I did.
before? Okay. Maybe just give us a quick walkthrough. We have the application materials. I understand there's a dog involved at the moment that maybe would have a lot of people benefit from a better fence.
Yes.
Uh,
So there's some unique topography to
Yeah.
the way 120, my property, meets 35, the rear line of 35 Drury, that creates, about a 4-foot difference in grade. And so what I'm seeking to do is start the fence at the rear right corner of my property in compliance with the code at 6 feet, and just carry a level line across the back, so that I don't have to deal with, the kind of undulation of the property. I don't have to truck dirt in to overhaul the property itself, and basically to maintain a level of safety, privacy, and aesthetic.
Did we have anything that shows what the proposed fence looks like?
No, I have dimensions
fence.
of where it would be, but
Yeah.
kind of the outcome of this will determine kind of the end design. But
Yeah, we've had some instances where the fence height limit was an issue, and I'm not sure how the fence height got in there, but it's in there. I have no problem at all with your request, personally. It's a disturbing situation not to feel comfortable in your own yard.
yes,
And I think that alone is a lot of times a 6-foot high fence is enough, but based on what I'm hearing in the location of the let's say the hazard, I don't have a problem with 7 or 7.5 foot high fence.
and just to clarify, the fence would start at 6 foot.
Yeah.
And so in the section where it exceeds standard, actually how it's perceived from 35 Drury would be closer to like 4.5 feet.
Okay, so because of the topography,
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
it's aesthetic too of flat.
Yes.
yeah, I mean the fences look kind of funny when they,
When they're like racked, I mean,
Well-
with the, I mean,
it's tough to even put them in because
Yeah.
you either have to stagger them down so that the fence material stays
Yeah.
vertical, or they really look funny. So yeah, I have no problem with this application. Does anybody else have a question for the applicant?
Makes sense to me.
Just on principle, is it a like smooth slope down in the back of your neighbor's yard, or is it like a cliff?
It's like a bit of a berm. It goes from 3.5 feet down pretty
Okay.
quickly.
I think you can kind of see
Yeah,
some of the.
yeah,
yeah,
the
it's only in
some
the
of the-
corner.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
because I would think on principle we would measure from the neighbor's yard if it's a cliff.
So there's two factors. So
Yeah.
So it's from 35 Drury, there's a slight slope that goes all the way from, I guess, where the kind of the high point of his yard all the way down to like the retaining wall
Yeah.
on Main Street. And then going horizontally, my yard pitches down and his slightly goes up.
Yeah.
So we end up with differences in grade in a number of different directions.
Yeah, because I feel like the fence you're proposing is much better than the fence that exists right now for like everybody.
Yes, and to be clear as well, that fence would not be removed.
Okay. Yeah.
That's his fence.
That's his fence. It's on our property line, our shared line. But the fence I'm proposing would be, a foot and a half, 2 feet onto my property.
And you could put it closer, but it becomes difficult to sort of maintain or work in there or do anything to it. Or
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues is the lack of maintenance to the existing fence, so I want to make sure that I have access to the rear side to maintain it.
Sure. All right. We need to go through our standards of review. So, just as the variance, this is the process. In accordance with 24 VSA 4469, the board may grant variances if it finds that all the following standards of review are met, and such findings are included in its written decision. Number one, don't really have to read all this. You've answered most of it
It's up
already.
to you. Yeah,
Um,
I will say, it was a pleasure to call Chris about this and work through these. We did talk through, knowing that the variance language is written into state law. It does not include provisions for public safety hazards, and so calling Chris and getting clarity that there are unique physical topographical conditions that make this an issue provided a lot of clarity. So I went by one by one,
Mhm.
gave you some guidance, but staff believes that this application meets all 5 criteria.
All right, and so we can, the motion can indicate that we've agree with staff's findings and that all 5 criteria required for variance have been met successfully. Okay, so recommendation is that we grant the variance. I move that the DRB approve the variance request seeking relief from a 6-foot height requirement for a fence to construct a level stockade fence to a maximum of 7'6" at the rear property line at 120 Main Street in the R1 district by Chris Vaughn, owner. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck to you, sir.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for your patience.
Thanks for your patience tonight.
Absolutely. Okay. Lastly, are there any other development review board items?
Just 2 quick staff updates for me. So I believe Dylan and Maggie's terms are up. City staff should be reaching out soon. You don't have to comment now, but they'll be reaching out to see if you're interested in renewing your term. Just to give you a heads up. Also wanted to make the board aware that the Planning Commission and City Council are scheduling a joint meeting on May 1st. They're discussing the housing targets presented by the Regional Planning Commission and the future land use map that corresponds to that. They are also receiving a presentation from the consultant putting together the transit-oriented development project. That is the drafted master plan for that project. So big topics to discuss at that
That's
meeting.
May 1st.
May 1st. I
That's
believe it's
awesome.
the-
And where is the meeting held?
That's at the police station at
Police station?
6:30 p.m.
Nice.
So-
That would be fun to get to.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for making us aware of that.
Yep, welcome to attend, and quorum should not be an issue as long as you don't discuss DRB related things at the meeting if 3 of you happen to be there.
Is there any plan for a planning commission DRB?
In the
Joint.
discussion. Yep, Chris is working on it.
Can we call that a mixer?
It'd be fun.
We've had food and drink before at these, by the
We should need a
way.
babysitter.
Okay. That's fantastic. Was there something? How about do we get to see what's going on with the train station at any point? Is that we're not ready for that yet, are we?
Let's see.
I
I had a
believe-
call a week and a half ago with the consultant, giving basically just asking Chris and I for clarity on, who owns what parcel, what's the history, and we're kind of guiding them toward the station improvement that was in the original approved plan. But we should see some materials for that in the near future. I don't have a date for that yet.
Is there a schedule of public presentations or anything like?
It's quite quick. I think the engineer's hoping to get something publicly facing by the summer, but again, I don't have a specific date.
Are they gonna ask for input before they dive right in, or they have sort of a task
They've got a task.
already, right?
Yeah, I believe due to the federal grant funding tied to this project, the scope is somewhat on guide rails, but there will be a public comment period as well.
And how about the work currently happening at the train station, which was mostly the loading platform and some other things? It seems like they're still over there doing.
That's
something.
right. Extraordinarily confusing. There are two separate improvement projects happening at our train station. One is almost entirely out of our hands, and that's happening right now. That is Amtrak's platform accessibility projects that are getting the actual platform of the train station up to accessibility standards.
Yeah, we're like 10 years behind. On
Yeah.
that. Or at least 10
I
years.
thought it was gonna be high, like it was gonna be raised.
It's a like a dock leveler or
Something
something,
like
right?
that,
It's a
yeah.
lift.
Oh,
Actually,
okay,
a lift.
okay.
We are
Yeah.
almost entirely off of that project. The second is the station redesign, which is what will be presented
Oh,
this summer.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn. Can I make a motion?
You can do that at any point. You can do that like
Are we done?
first item on the agenda.
I need a second. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Well, I mean,
Wow,
I think we all
look at
want
that.
to say it. Didn't we all want to say it?
Yeah.
Wait.
You can,